Have you ever wondered what would happen if the oldest law in the universe was shattered by the smallest of hands? Tonight, you will hear the story of a boy who dared to touch the heart of a dying dragon, and in doing so defied powers older than time itself. Stay with me until the end, because nothing in this tale is what it first appears. And if you enjoy stories of impossible courage and hidden truths, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next secret waiting to be told. The great hall of the dragons trembled in silence as the elder collapsed, and the sound of his fall echoed like thunder. The fire in his chest dimmed, and the glow that had burned within him for centuries flickered into darkness. The dragons gathered around, but none stepped forward, for all of them knew the law, and none dared break it. The law was older than memory, older than stars, older than the blood of their kind. It commanded that when the heart of a dragon ceased, it was not to be touched or revived, for the balance of the universe demanded stillness and obedience to death. The boy stood at the farthest edge of the hall, pressed against a pillar of stone. His name was Kieran, and his hands were small as clothes, worn with grease and soot from engines and tools. He was known among them a human apprentice who fixed broken valves on a station that dragons rarely noticed. He was an outsider, an orphan, a shadow in the presence of fire. Yet his eyes widened as he saw the elder fall forward him. The sight was not sacred, but simply wrong. It was a life ending before his eyes, and all of him ached to move. The dragons' voices rose in whispers that struck like blades. The heart has stopped. One said, "The time is complete." Said another. They bowed their heads, wings folded tight, claws dug into the stone. The air was heavy with resignation. And fear not grief, for they were too bound by law to grieve out loud. Kieran could not understand. He saw the elder's chest still, and he heard no breath, and he felt a scream in his own lungs that no one else dared release. He remembered his mother's face pale in the dust of a collapsed tunnel. He remembered waiting for help that never came because the miners had said the supports were too dangerous to touch, and so they watched as she faded. He remembered clutching her hand and begging, and feeling her hand grow colder, while men obeyed rules that valued safety over life. That day, he had sworn that he would never stand by while someone could still be saved. The elder dragon was vast, scales shimmering like fractured sapphire each breathless moment. His light dimmed. Kieran stepped forward against the weight of his own fear. The dragons noticed a movement. It has cut the air. Stop. One warned, his golden eyes flared with anger. The law forbids it. Kieran stopped for only a heartbeat. His chest was tight. His pulse pounded. His mind screamed that he was about to be crushed by the will of creatures far greater than him. Yet, when he looked at the elder's still form, he saw not a god, but a being in need, and he could not stay still. He darted past claws and wings. His boots scraped against the polished stone. He threw himself beside the elder. His hand shook, but he pressed him against the cold scales, searching for the faintest sign of rhythm. He felt nothing. Shouts filled the chamber. Dragons loomed over him, towering like mountains. Flames built in their throats, yet they held him back, for they did not know how to punish what they could not believe was happening. One cried out, "Human, leave him." Another bellowed, "You doom us all." Kieran did not listen. His mind raced with fragments of training, scraps of survival techniques. He had fixed power lines and shocked engines back to life. He had never tried to restart Dragon's heart, but life was life. He pressed harder. He whispered, come on, you are not gone yet." His tools clattered from his belt. He grabbed a charge coil, small and fragile, compared to the massive chest before him. He jammed wires against the scale, seemed praying it would reach deep enough. Sparks danced. The smell of ozone filled the air. Dragons recoiled at the violation of their sacred elder. Kieran clenched his teeth and shouted, "Breathe." For a moment, nothing than a tremor ran through the dragon's chest. A flicker of light burst beneath the scales. The elder's body, convulsive eyes snapped open, and a low thunder rolled from his throat. The hall quaked with a gasp from every dragon present. The boy staggered back in shock. His hands blackened with soot. His heart raced faster than it ever had. The elder turned his colossal head toward him, eyes burning with a strange mixture of fire and wonder. The silence that followed was deeper than any before. It was the silence of a law undone. The council members pressed closer. Some growled with fury, others trembled with awe. The chamber seethed with conflict, but none spoke aloud the truth. Each felt they had witnessed the impossible. They had seen the law broken by a child of another kind. The elder drew a breath that shook the stone beneath him. His voice rumbled low, but clear. He touched the fire, and it answered. Kieran stared up, breathless, frozen between terror and triumph. He had saved a life. He had undone an age of silence. He had called down judgment he could not yet see. And though the elder lived, a shadow would have been broken, filled the hall. The dragons knew the watchers would see. They knew retribution would come, yet none moved against the boy, not yet. The moment hung sharp as a blade poised to fall. The boy's eyes darted between their towering forms. He knew he was alive only because shock held him still. The law had been shattered by his hands, and though the elder breathed again, the cost was yet to be paid. The boy whispered to himself, "I did what I had to do." His words fell into hush like a stone into deep water ripples spreading unseen. Above them the stars flickered as though something vast had already turned its gaze toward the broken order of the universe. The elder closed his eyes, and the glow in his chest steadied. A miracle had happened, but the air tasted like dread. The boy's hand still trembled. He knew he had not only saved a life, but ignited a fire that would burn across the stars. And as the dragon stared down at him as silence deepened to a roar in his ears, he felt the story had only just begun. The elder's chest still glowed faintly as if the fire within him had been reborn, and the council of dragons surrounded him with eyes burning like suns. Some looked at the boy with awe, others with fury. The silence stretched long and heavy until one voice broke through. "The law is broken." The words thundered from a crimson-scaled dragon, whose wings scraped the pillars as he stepped forward. "This human has defiled our most sacred command, and the balance is shattered." Kieran stood small in the circle, his clothes torn, and his hands still blackened from the coil. His throat was dry. He wanted to speak, yet fear closed around his voice. The dragons loomed like mountains or shadows, swallowing him whole. The elder stirred his massive head, lifted his eyes blazed with light that had almost been lost. He spoke with a rumble that shook the stone. "He saved me." The hall erupted in chaos. Flames hissed from jaws and wings beat against the air. Some roared that the boy must be destroyed. Others cried that the elder's word was law enough to shield him. Yet none could deny what had been seen. The human child had placed his hand upon the heart of a dragon and called it back from silence. Kieran swallowed hard and raised his voice, though it cracked. "I could not just stand and watch. I could not let him die." His words sounded small against their thunder, yet they carried something the dragons did not expect, not defiance alone, but raw conviction. A silver-scale matriarch lowered her head close to him. Her eyes gleamed cold and merciless. "You speak of choice, but there was no choice. You have called doom upon us all. Do you not understand, child? The law is not ours alone. It belongs to the Watchers. They see all, they do not forgive." Kieran felt his knees weaken. The name itself carried weight. He had heard whispers of the Watchers, tales told in fear on the edge of campfires. Guardians, judges, executioners. No one knew what they truly were, only that they enforced laws written in the fabric of stars. Yet even with the weight of those stories pressing down, he clenched his fists. "If saving him is doom," he said, "then doom is better than letting him die." Gasps filled the chamber. The matriarch reared back. With snarl, the crimson dragon roared, flame licking the air above his head. "Then you accept your death." The elder rose higher. His body shook from weakness, yet his wings spread wide. His voice cut through every other sound. "Enough." His eyes blazed as he looked upon the boy. "The law may be broken, but so too is fear. For ages we have bowed to rules that bind our hearts in chains, and now a child has shown us what it means to act." The council fell to uneasy silence. Some glared with hatred. Others looked away, unable to meet the elder's gaze. A crack had split the foundation of their faith, and it terrified them more than the Watchers themselves. Kieran felt the weight of the elder's words settle on him. He had not sought to change anything. He had only wanted to save a life. Yet now every dragon looked at him as though he had dragged them all into the path of a storm. Outside the Hall, the stars seemed to flicker. Shadows move across constellations, as if something vast stirred in the void. The air inside grew colder, and the stone beneath their feet groaned. Kieran sensed it. Before anyone spoke, the Watchers were coming. The matriarch hissed, "They will not wait. They will demand judgment." Her voice carried terror, though her face was iron. The elder lowered his head. To Kieran, his massive eye burned with both gratitude and sorrow. "You must be ready, child, for what follows will not spare you." Kieran's voice trembled, but he forced the words out. "I am not afraid." It was a lie. He was afraid more than he had ever been. His bones shook with it, his heart thundered with it. Yet beneath the fear was a fire that would not die. He watched his mother fade. Because others obeyed rules, he would not watch another life end that way, not ever again. The crimson dragon stalked forward. His claws struck sparks against the stone. "Then let us end this now before the Watchers tear us apart." He loomed over the boy, eyes blazing with rage. The elder stepped between them, his wings wrapped partly around Kieran. His voice roared with force that cracked stone. "If you touch him, you defy me, and I have already defied death itself. Do you think I will yield to you?" The hall shook with his defiance. The crimson dragon froze, torn between fury and fear. The others pulled back, whispers rising like storm winds. Some spoke of rebellion, some of submission. All spoke of dread. Kieran stood at the center, trembling, yet still upright, his gaze lifted to the vaulted ceiling. where faint cracks of light shimmered across the stone, as if the sky itself were splitting. The watchers were drawing near. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "If they come for me, then so be it." The elder heard his voice, softened though it still rumbled with power. "No, child, they will not take you without facing me." The matriarch's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp as steel. "You risk all of us for a human." The elder turned toward her, his eyes fierce. "I risk all of us for life itself, and if we have forgotten that, then perhaps it is time to remember." The silence that followed was filled with tension that could shatter at any moment. Dragons stared at one another, as if the ground beneath them had cracked, and they no longer knew which side they stood upon. Then the stone trembled again, a sound rolled to the chamber, not from throat or wing, but from the heavens above, a resonance deeper than thunder, sharper than lightning. The watchers had arrived. Every dragon lowered its head to the ground, their wings folded tight, their eyes shut in terror. The air itself bent the light, warped the hall, was filled with a presence vast and unrelenting. Kieran felt his breath crush from his chest, as if the weight of the cosmos pressed upon him. He felt his knees, his vision blurred, yet through the haze he saw the elder still standing, wings outstretched, eyes blazing with fire that refused to dim. And then voices, not one, but many, echoed from the walls, from the air, from within their very minds. "The law is broken, the balance is undone, the price must be paid." The hall quaked, stone split, dust rained from the ceiling. The watchers had spoken judgment. The boy's heart raced. He had defied the dragons. Now he stood before something far greater, and he knew the trial had only just begun. The hall was drowned in light that bent the stone and warped the air. The dragons pressed their heads to the ground, their bodies trembling under the crushing weight of the presence that filled the chamber. Kieran could barely breathe. His chest ached, as if the air itself had been stolen. His eyes burned as he forced them open to see what no human had ever dared. Shapes shimmered in the void above the dais, vast figures of light and shadow twisted into forms that shifted with every heartbeat. At one moment they seemed as tall as mountains, at another they seemed close enough to touch. Their voices filled every corner of the hall, echoing within bone and blood. "The law is broken," they said together, though no mouth moved. "The balance is undone. The mortal who interfered must be given to us. His life will be the price." Dragons shuddered as a decree rolled through them. Some cried out in fear, others in relief, for judgment was clear. They had only to yield the boy, and perhaps the storm would pass. Kieran felt every eye upon him. His legs shook, but he would not bow. He lifted his head, and his voice cracked as he forced the words out, "No." The sound was small against the roar of cosmic judgment, yet it cut through the silence like a blade. The dragons gasped. The elder turned toward him, eyes wide with fire that was half pride, half dread. The watchers shifted their gaze toward him. Their presence pressed heavier. His skin prickled, his bones felt as if they would break. "You refuse," they said. "I refuse." Kieran answered, his throat burned, but he forced the words. "Your law demands that life be left die. I will not obey it." The chamber shook with fury. The watchers' light darkened into shadow. Their forms split into countless eyes blazing with fire. "You are a child of dust. You defy the first law. You challenge the balance itself." The crimson dragon slithered forward. His voice broke with terror. "Forgive him. He is nothing. He does not speak for us. We surrender him to you." His eyes fell on Kieran, filled with venom. "Better one human than the death of us all." The elder stepped between them, his wings spread wide, shielding Kieran. His voice thundered with rage. "No, he is not nothing. He is the reason I breathe now. He is the reason you hear my voice. If he dies, then your law is hollow." The matriarch hissed. "Elder, you condemn us. The watchers will end us all if we resist." The elder's eyes blazed. "Then let them try." Kieran's heart pounded as he looked up at the watchers. Their endless eyes were upon him. His fear screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. He remembered his mother fading. Because others obeyed rules, he remembered the silence of her last breath. He clenched his fists and shouted with all the fire in him, "If your balance demands death, then your balance is wrong." A shockwave tore through the hall. The watchers' forms writhed, their voices split into 1,000 overlapping tones. You dare to judge us, you who are nothing." Kieran staggered, but stood firm. His body shook. His voice was hoarse. "I am human, that is enough." The elder lowered his head. Beside him his rumble like distant thunder, "And I stand with him." The watchers unleashed a storm of power. Light flared, tearing stone into dust. Shadows slashed like blades. Dragons screamed as the chamber cracked. Under the weight of their wrath, the air became fire and void. Kieran was thrown back against the wall, pain flashing through him. Yet he pushed himself up, staggering. His lungs burned, but his eyes blazed with defiance. The elder roared his flames, cutting through the storm. His wings battered against the wave of energy. He struck upward toward the shifting forms above, but his fire barely scratched their endless bodies. Still he stood, unyielding, the boy's small figure at his side. Dragons scattered in terror. Some fled toward the corners of the hall. Others roared against the elder, calling him mad. Their fear was greater than theirs when they bowed to the watchers, even as the world shook apart. Kieran saw their cowardice, and his anger burned hotter than his fear. He grabbed a coil from his belt, the last he had, and jammed it into the broken stone wall. Energy sparked. He forced a charge into the shattered floor. Beneath the watchers stormed the ground, lit with raw current. A blast ripped upward, and for a heartbeat the storm faltered. The watchers' forms flickered. The elder seized a moment. He launched upward wings, straining fire blazing. He struck into the heart of the light, and for the first time the watchers recoiled. "You cannot destroy us," their voices roared. "We are the law, we are the balance." The elder's answer was a bellow that shook the chamber. "Then hear this, we are more than your chains." Kieran dragged himself forward, his body aching, his hands bleeding. He shouted with the last of his voice, "We choose life." The watchers trembled, light flared, and shadows twisted. Their endless voices clashed in confusion and rage. "This defiance will mark you, this world will burn you, will be hunted to the end of time." The elder landed heavily beside the boy, shielding him once more. His eyes burned with fire that would not be quenched. His voice was calm, yet filled with steel. "Then let them hunt, we will not bow." Kieran breathed hard, his body weak, yet his spirit unbroken. He looked up at the figures of light and shadow, still writhing in fury above him. The cracks of the sky widened, spilling strange stars. Into view the storm was not over, it had only begun. The watcher's presence pressed down once more, but this time it was met not with silence, but with defiance. The elder's stance was unshaken. The boy's eyes burned with human fire. The dragons around them wavered, torn between terror and the stirring of something they had long forgotten. The watcher's final word shook the hall. "You have chosen rebellion. Then rebellion you shall have." The light flared, blinding the shadows, split into rivers of darkness that poured outward into the night sky. The chamber collapsed into silence as the presence faded. Kieran gasped for breath. His body trembled, his ears rang. He was alive, and so was the elder, yet the dread in the eyes of every dragon told him the truth. The watchers had not been defeated, they had only begun their war. The elder lowered his massive head to the boy, his eyes fierce with both sorrow and pride. "You've changed everything, child." Kieran swallowed his fear, his voice rough, but steady, then let it stay changed. The hall lay in ruins, the air heavy with ash and silence, but in that silence, something new had been born, a spark that could not be put out, a fire that would burn against the dark. And far above, beyond the stars, the watchers turned their gaze upon the world with fury. Unending, the storm was not gone, it was waiting. The ruins of the hall smoldered. The dragons gathered in uneasy silence, some bleeding, some trembling, their eyes filled with fear. The elder stood tall. Though his wings drooped with exhaustion, Kieran leaned against his massive side, gasping for breath. His body was weak, but his eyes burned with the same fire that had carried him through. The watchers were gone, yet not defeated. Their words still echoed to the air of promise of war. Kieran felt like a weight in his chest. He had not only broken a law, he had declared rebellion against the very order of the universe. He should have been terrified, but instead he felt something else, a strange clarity, a sense that the fight had only begun. The crimson dragon stepped forward, his scales cracked in the storm, his voice bitter and sharp. "You have doomed us all, human child. Already the watchers gather their wrath. We cannot fight them, you will bring extinction." Kieran straightened, though his body trembled. "Then we fight anyway, because life is worth more than their balance." The matriarch hissed, her silver scales dull with ash. "You speak as though you know where you are fragile, you are dust against the storm." The elder's voice rumbled deep and steady. "And yet dust defied the storm, dust gave me breath again, dust stood where we would not." His eyes burned as he looked upon the others. "Do you not see we have forgotten courage, and a child has shown us what it means?" The council erupted in argument. Voices rose and clashed. Some demanded the boy be cast out to appease the watchers. Others whispered that perhaps he had awakened something they had lost. The chamber rang with their conflict until the ground shook again, a tremor deeper than before. Kieran's heart froze. He knew the watchers had not gone, they had only retreated to return stronger. The elder raised his head. Flames leaked from his jaws. "They come." The ceiling split with light, the sky itself opened, and rivers of fire poured downward. The watchers returned not as distant voices, but as wrath-given form. Their bodies stretched across the heavens, their shadows fell upon the world. Entire mountains shook with their arrival. The dragons roared in terror. Kieran stood his ground, though his legs shook. The voices of the watchers split the air. "You have chosen rebellion, then die in rebellion." The elder roared back, his wings spread wide though torn, "Then let us die free." The storm descended, light seared, the stone shadows cut like blades. Dragons scattered, some fled into the night, others turned and unleashed fire into the sky. Their flames crashed against the Watcher's storm, yet barely slowed it. Kieran knew running meant nothing. They would all be hunted. He turned to the elders, shouting over the roar, "We cannot outmatch them with fire. We need something greater." The elders' eyes burned with sudden clarity. The core. Kieran followed his gaze beyond the broken hull. The mountain station's reactor pulsed deep within the earth. It was a heart of power forged to feed the Dragon City. If it were unleashed, it could shake the heavens themselves. Kieran's blood chilled. He knew what it meant. "You cannot mean to destroy it," he shouted. The elder lowered his head close. "It is the only way together we may channel its fire into a single strike." Kieran hesitated only for a heartbeat to fear of death surge in him, but he remembered his mother's fading hand. He remembered the elder gasping back to life. He clenched his jaw. Then let's do it. They ran through the broken hull. Stone fell around them. Fire rained from above. The dragons cried out as the Watcher's wrath consumed the sky. Yet when they saw the elder and the boy moving together, some followed, drawn by a spark of defiance that had not lived in them for centuries. The path to the core was a descent into fire. The walls glowed with heat. The air seared Kieran's lungs. Yet he pressed forward, guided by the elder's vast form. The core chamber blazed with raw energy, a sphere of light suspended within conduits, and coils that pulsed like the heart of the world. Kieran's hand shook as he tore open panel. Sparks scorched his skin. He worked faster than he'd ever worked in his life. The elder lowered his chest, close as fire, leaking into the conduits to merge with the humans' machines. Together, they shaped the flow into a single channel, a lance of pure energy, waiting to be unleashed. Above them, the mountains split. Open, the Watchers descended. Their voices thundered. "You cannot resist." Kieran shouted, his voice hoarse. "Watch me." He slammed the final, switched the core, screamed with power. The chamber shook. The elder roared, unleashing his fire into the surge. The energy fused into a torrent brighter than stars that burst upward to the mountain, a beam of fire and light that tore into the heavens and struck the heart of the Watcher's storm. For the first time, the Watchers screamed. Their endless voices split in agony. Their forms twisted and shattered like cracked shadows bled across the sky. The dragons roared with shock and hope as the storm reeled back. Kieran fell to his knees, his body weak, his vision fading. The power had nearly torn him apart. The elder bent low, shielding him with his wing. His voice rumbled, "Stand, child, they are not yet gone." Kieran forced himself up. His body screamed, but his spirit burned. The Watchers still writhed above, broken, but not destroyed. Their voices trembled with fury. "You have marked yourselves. You will never know peace. We will return. We will end you." The elder raised his head. His voice thundered, "Then return and find us waiting." The sky split. The Watchers tore themselves away, retreating into void. Their storm faded, leaving the stars raw and bright. The mountains smoldered. The core dimmed. The chamber lay in ruin, yet the world still stood. Silence fell, broken only by the rasp of Kieran's breath and the heavy rumble of the elder dragons crept forward, their eyes wide with awesome bowed before the elder. Others stared at the boy as if seeing him for the first time, not as dust, not as an outsider, but as something more. The crimson dragon lowered his head, his voice low. "We are still alive because of him." The matriarch's gaze softened, though her voice still carried steel. "The law is broken forever, but perhaps it was meant to break." The elder turned his eyes upon Kieran, his voice filled with pride and weight. "You have defied God's child, and you have given us back our courage. From this day, you are not merely human, you are kin." Kieran swayed with exhaustion, his lips cracked, yet a faint smile broke across his face. He whispered, "Then let's make a new law, one that says life comes first." The elder bowed his massive head. "So it shall be." The dragons roared as one fire lit the sky, not in fear, but in triumph. The sound shook the mountains, carrying far across the world. A new age had begun. Kieran stared up at the stars, his body weak, his spirit fierce. He knew the Watchers would return. He knew the war was not ended, but he also knew something greater. They were no longer bound by fear. Humanity and dragon together had declared defiance against the chains of the cosmos. The boy's voice was a whisper, yet it carried like flame. "Then let them come." And the stars above seemed to tremble as if listening.